This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview. Joining us today is Alexander Scanlon, the CEO of Barton Gold. So hello, Alexander. Thank you very much for joining us again. How are you?
Doing well. Thank you for having us.
Well, thank you very much for coming on. I remember that we spoke before for the first time where you gave us a bit of an introduction to the company, and you said that you already have a 1.1 million ounce JORC resource and you were aggressively targeting large-scale gold discoveries, and lots of announcements were due. So just catching up on some of those announcements, of course, the first one there, the completion of Tarcoola Phase 3 drilling, and you've drilled 3,267 meters to confirm new, easily accessible mineral resource. So can you give us a bit of an update on this drilling and what's led up to it really with Phase 1 and Phase 2?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. The drilling on the Tarcoola open pit or in the vicinity of it was really based upon a confirmation and infill of a new high-grade zone that we discovered and confirmed last year. So in the immediate wake of our IPO, we started drilling quite aggressively, both at the Tarcoola and Tunkillia projects. The results of all of that drilling was the discovery of 3 new gold zones between these projects. One of those was Perseverance West, and Perseverance West is currently mapped to be about a 350-meter long high-grade gold zone, which starts immediately adjacent to the southwest end of the Perseverance open pit at the Tarcoola project. So prospectively, very shallow, easily accessible mineralization. So we've gone back in and executed a bunch of drilling, on a few regional targets as well, but basically to fill in that high grade extension so that we can then convert that into resource, establish that continuity, convert it to resource, and then tuck it away and basically have an option, if you will, for some high-grade, easy extension mining of an existing open pit, because that pit was previously feeding our mill. So we know it works very well, that mineralization with our mill, and that would give us a lot of optionality to look at either a shorter term or nearer term production of a few tens of thousands of ounces and generate some capital internally, which is something we're focused on doing to avoid any future dilution. But it also forms essentially the sort of first piece of a broader, bigger picture, which would include a multi-year reanimation of the mill in that region. The other drilling that we've done, which was down at Tunkillia recently, about another 3,350 meters of drilling, if I recall correctly. That also followed the discovery of the other 2 gold zones that we confirmed last year in October and November. That was drilling done based upon a new geophysical model that we have come up with. And this is really using old data and new data with much higher order processing than has been originally or traditionally available. And this model predicted multiple zones of mineralization in specific orientations. So we drilled we drilled 2 of those predicted targets last year. Post-IPO in November, we confirmed 2 new gold zones for about 1.5 kilometers of new mineralization. And that's exciting because there at the Tunkillia project, we have a 965,000 ounce resource, which sits on about 2.5 kilometers of mineralization. So that drilling extended the strike of that project by about 60%, the mineralized strike. The drilling that we've just now recently completed in April is actually testing another 3rd high priority target predicted by that same model that we've now tested and validated twice. So that's the Area 51 target, and that's about 3 kilometers northwest of that 965,000 ounce deposit. So quite a bit going on there, but the focus really is rapidly growing the footprint of these projects so that we can then infill them and convert them into a significant or large-scale new resource.
Okay, so the objective really, is to extend what you've already got and prove up some more resource. Would you say that that objective has been completed? I mean, I think you're waiting assay results in 6 to 8 weeks' time, but are there any early signs about how the drilling has gone?
Yeah, look, in respect of the high grade zone at Perseverance West, a lot of what we're doing is sort of infill work connecting the shape of that extension. So I think we have fairly high expectations for those drill holes. The things that are sort of unknown, but about which we're optimistic, is sort of the ends of that existing 350-meter gold zone. So we've put a few more holes in closer to the pit to see just how closely that high grade extension ties to the pit, i.e., just how efficiently we could go straight through that pit wall and straight into mineralization. We've also put in some holes to test another sort of 50 to 100-meter extension of that zone as we move away from the pits. At Tunkillia, certainly, I think the drilling that we've done, thus far, looks very attractive. This target, called Area 51, was actually our number one ranked target. Looking at what we've seen in field, the truth teller, sort of the ultimate truth lies, of course, in the gold assays. But I think what we're seeing gives us a lot of hope that we'll see a continuation of, or rather, the definition of a new mineralized zone that is reflective of other areas of mineralization that we've already mapped out that look very similar geophysically. So we would expect that throughout July and August, we will be getting these 6,400 meters of assays returned, at which point, again, of course, well, actually not of course, but we're quite busy in planning much larger follow-up programs as well. So by the time we get all of these assays back, we will then be rolling into follow-on significant programs, and we expect to be undertaking a major seismic program over the Tarcoola project later this year. That's a program that is being co-funded by the South Australian government. So they've just given us about the South Australian government has just given us about $600,000 in exploration grant funding to co-fund our work. And we also expect to do another 15 to 20,000 meters of drilling. The end objective of all of this is to have an updated mineral resource estimate for the end of the calendar year. So obviously, aiming high, growing fast is really right now about expanding the footprints. But then, as we said, as we follow up and then build up, or probably more correctly, build down into the geology, we think there is real potential to delineate large-scale, multiple resource body style developments, sort of camp scale development projects that are open pittable, feeding a new large centralized mill for the long term. So it's all shaping up as we sort of predicted. It's nice to see that validated, and it certainly gives us a bit of extra energy to keep charging ahead.
Okay, well, I was going to ask you to give me the objective, or the risk of speculating a little bit, but I think you've laid out there really what the company is hoping to achieve. And the quote from the RNS: "We're just scratching the surface at these projects." So I think you've probably said enough there to risk going into too much speculation at this point. But I think you've made it quite clear what you hope to achieve for the company for the rest of the year and beyond. I wonder if we can perhaps just talk about, you mentioned in the last interview you want to leverage technology and the sense that you've been using. Can you explain a little bit about what that's all about?
Yeah, look, technology is pretty central to what we do, and a lot of what we do is actually essentially an R&D focused project or projects. The reason for that is where we are in South Australia is at the very heart, or the very center, of the Gawler Craton. And the state of South Australia is essentially 50% covered by the Gawler Craton. So this is a geological domain that is extremely richly structured and extremely richly mineralized. It is very well known globally for the IOCG style deposits, which run in a belt just to the northeast of our project areas. So we're bringing in a lot of technology to try to sort of expedite and high speed, if you will, a lot of the regional modeling, regional structural analysis that hasn't been done for the past 30 years. And this new technology is allowing us to do that on a fairly high-speed basis. One of the technologies that we are bringing in to sort of tie this all together is Sensor. So Sensor has this AI and machine learning technology, or I should say sort of predictive module or predictive engine that was originally designed for that outcropping style of mineralization in Western Australia. We've partnered with them as an R&D partner to look at how can we adapt that particular predictive targeting module to a geological domain where you are exploring undercover. So South Australia provides a perfect sort of test tube or perfect isolated area to do that. And the first phase of the analysis that we've done with them, the sort of orientation phase, has revealed to us a number of previously unrecognized gold and copper targets, based predominantly upon geophysical analyses and historical sort of analog data. So, data samples that are available from across the state's databases. The next step for us is now actually to feed in millions of points of idiosyncratic project data that we have across our tenements, about 5,000 square kilometers of tenements and gold rights. And again, this is millions of points of data, hundreds of thousands of meters of drilling, and years and years and years of gold production history, and tie this all together and essentially undertake then more of a 3D analysis of this using their discriminant predictive targeting module. And that will then, or is intended to, sharpen up the sort of phase one orientation or phase one modeling. And then based upon that, we will go out and test the highest priority, previously unrecognized but predicted targets, which we believe will give us the opportunity to make new large-scale discoveries on a massively accelerated basis and ultimately a much lower cost. And that really drives everything that we do. We do a lot of work up front to make sure that when we choose our hole placement, if you will, when we decide where we're going to drill, we don't drill 200 speculative holes for reconnaissance. We predict structure, and then we'll drill 10 to 15 holes to target and validate that structure undercover, and then we'll track upwards as opposed to large-scale pattern drilling trying to track downwards. The result of this has been that we've made a number of discoveries very rapidly. It also means that our success rate in drilling, so the number of holes that we drill that hit structure and mineralization, is very, very high. It's on the order of 80%, which is much, much higher than your traditional greenfields explorer. And that really for us is all about very, very careful use of our capital and maximizing the return on that investment. We sort of approach that treasury management aspect in a sort of uniquely different way than most explorers. And we have other advantages there where, while we are carefully destocking our capital, doing high value exploration, we are also strategically restocking our capital, and Sensor and tech and R&D angle is part of that entire strategy to make sure we're getting our shareholders the best bang for their buck and defending them against future dilution from unnecessary raises.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you very much for that update. Just in terms of what's to come for news for the market, of course, we can await the assay results. But while the company is waiting for that, what's the work that's going on in the background?
So we're basically setting up for I should say a follow-up program, multiple follow-up programs that will then immediately follow these 6,400 meters of drilling we've just completed. So we will obviously hope to confirm the continuity of that high-grade zone at Tarcoola. We are hoping that this drilling will confirm a new gold zone at Area 51. And right now we are doing our analysis on where best to spend drilling around the Tarcoola and Tunkillia projects to continue to essentially rapidly grow the footprints of these projects, but also to start to convert many of these new zones of gold mineralization into JORC mineral resources.
Okay. Excellent. Well, it sounds like there's lots going on at the company throughout the rest of the year. So thank you very much, Alexander Scanlon, the CEO of Barton Gold, for giving us that update today.
Yeah, thank you.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stopboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.